This video is about drones. Drones, you may have heard or seen drones, because in the past few years the technology has evolved very rapidly. Because of this, they have expanded into many industries, such as agricultural, industrial, filmmaking, and even in the military. This is going to be an extremely interesting video, so make sure you watch till the end. Hi, my name is Praneeth and welcome to my channel Everyday Space. If you're new to this channel or if you haven't done so already, be sure to like and subscribe. So as you may have known, in the past few years I have done many videos about space and rocketry. But now I've decided to do a series about drones and drone building. While these may seem very different at first, the basic fundamentals of both rocketry and drones are quite similar. And that is why I've decided to expand my expertise in the area. So as you may have known, in the past few years, drones have become increasingly advanced, as many new drone companies are jumping into the market, offering specialized drones at a much lower cost than before. Because of this, drones have spread into a variety of industries, including agricultural, industrial, filmmaking, and even defense. Now, as you see, drones are expanding into a lot of markets and many people are using them. But why are people using them in the first place? Well, the main reasons for this is that drones are relatively cheap and they require very little upkeep and maintenance. They are also quite easy to learn and don't require a lot of skill to operate. This is why many people are opting to use drones for their tasks. Now that you know why people use drones and what a basic drone is and does, let's look at the physics between how drones work. How an actual drone works. So as you may have known, drones basically need lift to get lifted off the ground. But to produce that lift, we need thrust. And thrust is achieved when the propellers spin extremely fast. The propellers, when spinning fast, are able to push the wind down towards the ground. When they do that, the wind also pushes up on the drone. To understand this concept better, it is basically Newton's third law. Newton's third law is what drones and rockets rely on to actually get off the ground. Newton's third law says that every force has an opposite and equal reaction force. So when the propellers push the wind downwards, the wind is also pushing the propellers upwards, and because the propellers are connected to the drone is then pushed upwards. So this is how we achieve thrust, and thrust is directly related to the amount of lift that a drone has. When you have thrust, you have lift. So the main key thing to getting the drone off the ground is that your lift always has to be greater than your weight. When the lift is not greater than your weight, the drone will either start falling back to the ground or it will not lift off the ground in the first place. Weight is created when gravity pushes down upon the object, and all objects on Earth experience this. This is why not all objects are floating in the air. So these two are the main factors in how a drone is able to fly and the forces that it experiences. But there's also another force called drag. Drag is when the air particles in the atmosphere push against the drone and making it slow down. But at the relatively low speeds that drones fly at, the drag is often not a big force and is not really considered because it is so small. It is only really considered when something is moving extremely fast and is not very aerodynamic. So these are the basic forces of how a drone is actually able to fly. But if you want more an in-depth way of how drones are able to move, like forward, backward, and to the sides, I will demonstrate that in a future video by using an actual model of a drone to demonstrate how it works, because it is kind of hard to visualize and think about it instead of actually seeing a model. So now let's look at what are the drone parts that actually make this drone fly and spin the propellers. So now let's look at what the basic drone parts are and where they go on the drone. Now I have put a tiny list here of the basic drone parts that you might need. But keep in mind that these are not all the drone parts in the world, and there are many more different drone parts for specialized things that you want to do. But these are the most common and basic. So first, we need propellers. Like I mentioned before, propellers are what actually make the drone go up and into the sky. So you obviously need 4 propellers. Also, keep in mind that there are not always 4 propellers on drones, because there are always not 4 wings and motors. There are many different variations of drones. They can have 6 propellers, 2 propellers, 3 propellers, but the most common one is 4 propellers. So next, we just have propellers, but they can't move without motors. That is why we also need 4 motors for this drone. After we have the 4 motors as well, we can now actually move the propellers. But what is going to tell the motors how fast to go, when to go, and when it should slow down or stop? For that, we use the electronic speed controller, or the ESC. There are many different types of ESCs, ones that are just 4-in-1 ESCs, and ones that are individual like this. Most people generally put them on the arms of the drone because it is generally closer to the motor. We then have wires. It's generally 3 wires, but I'm just drawing 1 wire here so there's not too many wires to get confused with. Like I said, there's just usually 3 wires connecting to the ESC. Now the ESCs can tell and control the motors of how fast they should go, but what is actually going to give them that command? Because these can't just randomly tell the motors when to go, right? So for that, we need the flight controller. The flight controller is like the brain of the entire drone. It almost controls everything because it has many sensors, including the altitude sensor, the accelerometer, which tells it how fast it's going, and many more. So the ESCs all connect to the flight controller. Again, it's usually many wires, but I'm just drawing 1 here just so it doesn't get to be a huge mess. So now all 4 of our ESCs are now connected to the flight controller. But this all needs to be powered by something, so that is why we obviously have a battery. The battery is generally the largest component, and it is generally placed underneath the flight controller. So that is why I'm just going to draw it like this, just for reference. But keep in mind that this battery is generally underneath the entire drone in a tiny carriage spot. Or it can also be placed above the drone based on your configuration of drone. After that, we need a radio transmitter. In other words, a remote control. So let me just draw a basic remote control here. This is our basic remote control. There are obviously many variations of it. Some are cheap and some are expensive. But this is a basic radio control to tell the flight controller what to actually do based on your inputs. But this can't just directly tell the flight controller what to do. So for that, we have a receiver. The receiver generally comes with the radio transmitter when you buy it, and the radio control sends signals to the receiver directly, and then the receiver is able to tell the flight controller what the radio transmitter told it. So after that, these are the main parts of a drone. But there are also some optional parts, like a camera for instance. Many drones have cameras on board because it allows the person to take photos, videos, or even see it live. So let's just say this is our basic camera. Cameras can be on top of drones, beneath drones, to the side, and even behind. But for simplicity's sake, we're just putting it here, as this is where most drones usually have it, at the front. So the drone is also connected, the camera is also connected to the flight controller via, again, a series of wires, but I'm only drawing 1. And this is optional because not every drones need it. And the next optional thing that we have is a GPS. A GPS can tell the drone where it is exactly. GPSs are usually circular units, again controlled to the flight controller. GPSs are extremely useful, especially when let's just say the remote control lost signal with the receiver and now the drone is not getting any inputs from the remote control. Then instead of the drone just flying there and maybe even running out of battery, it can use its GPS to return automatically back to where it took off. That is why most drones, especially expensive ones, have the GPS. The GPS also sometimes allows it to be autonomous without the use of a remote control. The GPS can tell the drone where to go by itself. So again, like I said, there are many different drone parts for specialized functions, but these are just the most common and the most basic parts that people generally have on their drone. So these are the basic drone parts. So thank you for watching the video, and if you haven't subscribed already, please do subscribe. And because in the next video I'm going to be buying the actual necessary drone parts and 3D printing the frame of the drone to make a small miniature drone from scratch. I will be making a video showing the process of how to actually do it, so make sure to not miss the next video.